So when I was first approached by Professor Cheng about delivering remarks at Convocation, she asked me to keep my remarks brief. Which, if I think that shows one thing, it's that although I've learned so much from her, she's clearly learned nothing about me. Since we are all of the analytic tradition, I thought it might be most appropriate if I put my speech together in a way that's a little bit more in line with the department's stylistic interests. So, without further ado, here is the abstract for my Convocation speech. I'm really doing this. The purpose of this Convocation speech is to give you a sense of peace and closure as you end your undergraduate career at Rutgers. First, I will present a series of half-baked and poorly thought-out jokes which will solicit uncomfortable laughter from the audience. You're way ahead of me. Second, I will give a rousing pep talk about the power of reason, which may come off as flowery and nebulous, but I assure you is really profound to me. Third, I will issue a call to action to my classmates, one which will no doubt go unheeded, perhaps even by myself, especially by myself. There will be no empty philosophical musings. I will also deliberately omit the old Socratic adage, the unexamined life is not worth living, with the exception of what I just said. Finally, time permitting, and I assure you there won't be, I will field objections. Now, as advertised, my speech. So I'm going to begin with a scenario with which all of us undergraduates are familiar. It's not uncommon when we inform others about our field of study of philosophy that we're met with a look of confusion and disappointment, coupled with that perennial question, what good does philosophy do? Now, there are many adequate garden variety answers to this question. I could explain how philosophy was integral to the development of the personal computer. I could talk about the Socratic method. I could even mention that pesky constitution of ours, with natural rights and everything. But one thing that I think goes all too omitted from this discussion, probably because it's so hard to convey to non-majors, is that this major teaches us about the power of reason and teaches us how to use it, to act in accordance with principle and hold our opinions on adequate grounds. And when I'm talking about the power of reason, I mean specifically the practical benefits reason gives to the world at large and the optimism it gives to us. During the Enlightenment, there was this widespread belief that with reason we can cure the world of all its ills. Poverty, sickness, war, we could do away with all that through the pursuit of what is right and true. Soon enough, the 20th century rolls around. The A-bomb is dropped, the camps are cleared out during World War II, and horrific discoveries are made. Quickly did the masses proclaim, reason has failed. It couldn't cure the world of its ills. We're at square one. And I don't doubt that at that moment, in the 1940s, it certainly did. But it failed at the time. Its failure wasn't a guarantee of what was to come, because when we see no justice in the world, no signs of improvement or hope, it's reason that digs us out. It's reason which helps us envision a just world, a world in which we'd like to live. We take these principles at which we arrive through reason and we say to ourselves, may it one day be so that these principles govern this world in which we live. If you want to see optimism of this sort, you needn't look more than 100 yards from where I stand right now and about 100 years back. In 1919, Mr. Paul Robeson delivered his commencement address as valedictorian of Rutgers College. In his speech, he called for equality for all Americans. He expressed his wishes to live in a country where, and I quote, an injury to the meanest of us is an insult to the whole Constitution. Now, as Professor Temkin pointed out to me as we discussed this, by meanest, he means those who have the least, the most disenfranchised among us. And really imagine what this means, calling for equality for all Americans. In 1919, a black man standing before a room of white men in a country where segregation was the norm in the South, and it wasn't too great in the North either. It borders on ironic. But look what was to come. Schools were integrated. The Civil Rights Act was passed. Segregation was outlawed. But why did Mr. Robeson arrive at this viewpoint in 1919? That's the question we have to ask. It wasn't as if he could look out into the world and see a just, egalitarian American society in 1919. Heck, I'm not sure he'd be able to do that in 2013. Or would be able to do that in 2013. He had to get there through some other means. To arrive at principles of equality and justice some other way. What were these means? Where did this idea come from? It was reason. And that's what you have. That's what your major endows you with. That's what no one can take away from you. A conception of what is wrong in our time and what we can do for its remedy. But there's more to it than that. More we need to do. In a democracy, your well-informed and reasoned opinion still only affords you one vote. You need to work to change the hearts and minds of many to create measurable change. And this doesn't only happen at the picket line or the occupation of the administrative building down the street, which I assure you I know nothing about. No, I've found the greatest venue for social change, for true change in opinion, has been the classroom. Those among you planning to re-enter academia as educators, find yourself in a real position of power. If you need evidence for the power you can wield as an educator, I implore you to just look back over the last 4 or so years. Think back to your opinions back then. How much of your beliefs changed? And where did they change? Where did this change occur? It was your teachers, your classmates, your loved ones. This is the type of power each of you possesses, not just as educators, but as close friends, as colleagues, as classmates. This is the power to persuade others, to fundamentally alter their most core beliefs. Your major endows you with these qualities. Now go use them. I think a great reason for us to understand the world is to change it, although it's far from the only one, contrary to what Marx might tell you. I'm going to end this with a quote, although I promised myself I wouldn't. This comes from Ajarathi Roy. She writes, "Not only is another world possible, she is on her way. And on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." I hope you can hear her as well. Thank you very much to Ruth Chang for allowing me to speak, and to this department for the greatest education I could ever ask for, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you and congratulations.